Every single person watching this has a simple choice to make right now. You can keep scrolling, get a quick hit of dopamine, and forget this video ever existed. Or, you can stay for the next 10 minutes and learn the single most valuable skill on planet Earth, how to turn your lowest moment into your biggest breakthrough. Most people think success is a straight line. They think leaders like Nelson Mandela or Steve Jobs were destined for greatness. They weren't. They were ejected, imprisoned, and fired. In this video, we aren't just going to tell you to stay positive. We are going to reverse engineer the exact psychological framework used by history's greatest figures to bend failure to their will. By the end of this, you will have a new operating system for your life. You will understand why you are probably failing right now and exactly how to weaponize it. Let's get into it. We have been sold a lie. Society tells us that leadership is a straight line from A to B. But look at any real data set, any biography, and you'll see the truth. Success is not a line, it's a jagged, chaotic mess. Simon Sinek teaches us that people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. The same applies to leadership. If your why is only attached to success, you will quit the moment failure hits. But if your why is attached to a cause, failure just becomes feedback. Think about it, Thomas Edison didn't fail 10,000 times. He successfully found 10,000 ways that didn't work. He reframed failure as critical data. The moment you stop treating failure as a verdict and start treating it as data, you unlock something powerful. You unlock psychological safety. When you, as a leader, admit you were wrong, you give your team permission to innovate. You turn a culture of fear into a culture of growth. That is where exponential success begins. Success is a terrible teacher. Success makes you arrogant. It makes you think you're a genius. Failure is the best professor you'll ever have, and the tuition is your ego. Here are the 3 non-negotiable lessons failure teaches you. 1. Radical humility. Failure strips away the mask. It forces you to look in the mirror and say, I was wrong. And here's the counterintuitive truth. People don't trust perfect leaders. They trust human leaders. When you admit you misjudged, you don't look weak. You look real. 2. Surgical clarity. When you're winning, everyone claps. The noise is deafening. But when you fail, the crowd disappears. And in that silence, you finally see clearly. You see who actually has your back. You see what actually matters. Failure is the ultimate filter. 3. Emotional calluses. If you've never failed, you will collapse the first time real pressure hits. But when you've fallen and gotten back up, you develop grit. You learn to absorb the punch and keep moving. This isn't stubbornness, it's disciplined perseverance. If you are failing right now, stop asking why me. And start asking what is this trying to teach me? That shift in language changes everything. Okay, let's move from theory to the evidence. History is a graveyard of people who quit too soon. But the ones who stayed, they changed the world. Here is the playbook of the legends. The politician forged in chains, Nelson Mandela. In 1964, Nelson Mandela was sentenced to life in prison. The world thought it was over. For 27 years, he could have let bitterness consume him. Instead, he used that isolation to refine his vision. He studied his enemies. He learned their language. He realized that to lead, he had to be willing to reconcile. He walked out of prison not with a demand for revenge, but with a plan for unity. He turned a prison cell into a leadership seminar. The woman they couldn't silence, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. Before she became Africa's first female head of state, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf was imprisoned and forced into exile by a military coup. She lost elections. She was written off. But she understood that failure is an event, not an identity. She rebuilt her credibility piece by piece, and in 2005, she stabilized a nation and won a Nobel Peace Prize. The genius they fired, Steve Jobs. 1985. Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple, was fired from his own company. Public humiliation. Total failure. but he later called it the best thing that ever happened to me. Why? Because it freed him to be creative again. He started next. He bought Pixar. He learned design, storytelling, and operations. When he returned to Apple in 1997, he wasn't the same arrogant kid. He was a leader. And he built the iPhone. The lack of imagination case. Walt Disney. Early in his career, Walt Disney was fired by a newspaper editor because he lacked imagination. He then started a company called Laughogram, which went bankrupt. Imagine that feeling, being broke and told you aren't creative. But Disney used that bankruptcy as a reset. He moved to Hollywood, rebuilt from scratch, and created a kingdom of imagination. The survivor turned activist, Malala Yousafzai. At 15, Malala was shot in the head by the Taliban for daring to go to school. Most of us would hide in fear. Malala used her survival as a platform. She turned a bullet into a microphone. She became the youngest Nobel laureate, not by avoiding failure, but by refusing to let a tragedy silence her voice. So, what is the common thread? Mandela, Jobs, Malala, Lincoln, they all faced a zero moment. The moment where the old identity died. John C. Maxwell calls this failing forward. But how do you actually do it? You need a post-mortem protocol. After every failure, you must ask 3 brutal questions. What did I miss? Look at the blind spots. What assumptions were wrong? Challenge your reality. What must I change? If you keep doing what you did, you'll keep getting what you got. Without this reflection, failure is just pain. With this reflection, failure becomes a compass. This is the transition from simply surviving failure to evolving through it. Your confidence, when rebuilt on the rubble of a collapsed plan, is unshakable. Here is the final truth. Leadership is not about never falling. That's impossible. Leadership is about rising every single time with more wisdom and more purpose than before. If you are in a valley right now, if you feel like you're failing, I want you to look at this screen. This is not the end of your story. This is the first chapter of your comeback. History isn't written by the people who never failed. It's written by the people who refuse to stay down. If this video resonated with you, if you believe that setbacks are just setups for comebacks, then you need to be part of this community. Hit that subscribe button right now. Join thousands of others who are learning to lead with purpose. And comment below, what failure are you currently turning into fuel? I read the comments, and I want to hear your story. Thanks for watching. Now, go lead.